Friends, Super Friends, you name it, And then, as I got into to reading and got old enough to have a little bit of money to spend, I started collecting comics. First 3 comics that I had, which would have been another slide, were all Marvel. I had no idea what comic book stores really were or anything. There was an open pantry on 30-something in Lincoln, and they used to have a rack with comics on it. They only had Marvel, so my choices were limited to a few of those, and I got a copy of Uncanny X-Men, Wolverine, and Amazing Spider-Man. And I was like, well, I'm limited on what I can afford. Yeah, I had a paper route, and I chose Uncanny X-Men because, well, I figured, well, this is a team of characters, so I get all these superheroes for the price of one comic. And as I started making more money and everything else, I'd buy more comics, and pretty soon I was collecting just an amazing amount. I don't know how I even afforded it. But along with doing that, I always, from the time I was a little kid, my mom loves to tell people how caring of a child I was, and I always wanted to help people. Used to want to be a cop. I started going to school. I went to Bayview High School, which had a law and protective services specialty, and wanted to do that. And sometime, around the time I was graduating, I wasn't really sure if that's where I wanted to go, and life just sort of got in the way of all those plans. But I really loved superheroes, and I really loved helping people. So I thought, what the world could really use is some superheroes. And not crazy, a lot of people might think so, but okay, well, no superpowers, I can't fly, I'm not bulletproof or anything, but what if I just threw together a costume and went out and did what I could to help people? And so it's a very long, over many years to develop this, I started doing this, and I created somewhat of a persona, but I didn't get too much into naming myself and too fancy of a costume or anything until many years later, about the time that, MySpace was a thing. I'd gotten out of it for a while. I was in the Army, and then I got out of that, and I got married and had kids, and I was like, I kind of missed that. It didn't really work. I didn't really accomplish anything, but I'd like to give it another shot, and I kind of wonder if there's anybody else out there that was crazy enough to try this. And then, of course, we had the internet, which I didn't have when I started. And I started seeing, there are people, a lot of them around New York and stuff, that are doing this. I was like, okay, it's a thing, people are doing it. And I'm like, I'm gonna go back to it. And I talked to my wife, and she was like, okay, sounds crazy, go ahead. And then people had, because it was the internet, people needed names on MySpace and on some of the online forums they had, and I went with the Watchman. I get asked all the time if it has anything to do with Jehovah's Witnesses. I get asked all the time if it had anything to do with Watchmen. And no, neither. I just wanted something that said some sort of a guardian or sentinel or something like that. And I went out and started doing that, but about the time that I started getting back into it, some other people started finding out about it, finding it. The first guy I met was a guy named Moondragon, who very briefly was a real life superhero around Milwaukee, and about the time that we met, I met T. Krulos, who interviewed me one time for an article, which I don't think you even knew where it was going to go at the time, but went to Milwaukee Magazine, which just spiraled into all this media attention. So I used the media attention to accomplish even more, and I was able to start doing things like toy drives and things like that, and the more media attention I got, the more people would turn out and donate things, and it was great. But it also attracted some other attention. It attracted people like Blackbird, who was another real-life superhero that said, hey, this guy's doing this. I can do this too. The first time meeting Blackbird was actually a little crazy. I asked T actually along with it because we kind of become friends and everything. But I'm like, okay, now I got media attention. I got this guy contacting me that wants to meet me, and now I'm the crazy guy in the mask and the cape and everything, worrying about other crazy people. And it turned out to be a good guy, and we're still friends and still occasionally do things together. But yeah, it started a long relationship there with other real life superheroes, and more people started contacting us and saying, hey, I want to do this too. Soon we had like a whole team of people called the Challengers, and we'd go out and we'd patrol neighborhoods. We got really well known in River West, and still, even though I haven't been too active lately, and I'll kind of go into the reason why in a minute, but I can still throw on that mask and go down there and I still get, hey, Watchman. People know who I am. Which I think is great just because I was able to leave an impression there. And people knew, hey, some people thought, well, this is a nut job. But some people thought, hey, there's somebody that actually cares about this neighborhood enough to come out and do this and watch out for people and patrol it and stuff like that. And still to this day, people remember that, which I think is awesome, because it's really difficult to measure how successful we were or we weren't. But I do know that I was able to inspire other people to do good deeds and watch out for people and things like that. And so for every one of them that did, and maybe they inspired somebody else, I think that was great and definitely worth it. One of the guys that was in the Challengers, a guy named Crimson Crusader, and we became friends and found out, well, at the time I had moved to West Bend and I had been living there for a while. Found out that this guy lived actually just a few blocks away from me, and we'd talk regularly, and we had a lot of similar interests. And eventually, life kind of got busy. Less and less I would make it down to Milwaukee. Just didn't have the time, didn't have the money. So I started doing more charity things up in West Bend. He had things going on, and he wasn't going and doing it. And it seemed like that was kind of the thing with the Challengers. They all had their own things. Every once in a while, we'd still get together and we'd do something. But, life goes on. I think a lot of what we'd done kind of ran its course. We were able to use that attention and do some really good things with it. But I always suspected that as people got more and more used to it, that it wouldn't have that same effect. And I think that we stopped and really slowed down before we got to that point. Well, Crimson Crusader, whose real name I can give away, is Kurt Schub. We became friends and started working on other things. West Bend has not had a comic book store for a long time. He kind of wanted to open one, and even before that he knew that I was talking about it. It was kind of a dream. I didn't have the money for it, but West Bend really needs a good comic book store. Because besides buying comics, I used to love going to comic book shops and hanging out, and it was really like the community of it, to talk to other people who loved comics. And I'm like, West Bend doesn't have it. So my love of superheroes and comics influenced me once more. And so Kurt and I got together and we thought, neither of us have any money, we don't really have the resources, but together, maybe we can pull it off. And so I got some money together and donated my comic book collection, and he donated his dad's comic book collection. And we didn't have the money to rent the place or whatever. We decided, well, you know what? Let's start off, we'll sell stuff online. We can run it out of my basement. We'll just sell online. And we started, was meant to be this comic book club. We'll have people come over on Saturday afternoon, noon to 4, noon to 5, we'll have people come in, get together, talk comics, whatever. Well, that turned into people coming down to my basement, which I had arranged kind of like a comic book store. And they would come in and just buy stuff right from us. They weren't going to our website, whatever, they were coming in and and buying stuff. So it turned into the Saturday afternoon comic book store in my basement. And so we did that for about maybe a little over 6 months. And finally, we found a place, and we had enough money together, and we, at that point, had enough customers that we couldn't contain them in my basement any longer. And so we were able to get a storefront and officially open a comic book store. I mean, even then, we were licensed and everything. It was an official comic book store, but again, it was Saturday afternoons in my basement. And so now we were able to get enough people behind us and actually get this comic book store running. And so for a little over a year now, we've been on Barton Avenue in a storefront. And it's been really great. And I tell people that the best thing about our comic shop isn't the business, we're not making money and whatever, but we were very successful in building that community. We still have a comic book club, but now it's a real comic book club, and they meet every Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And we have people come in, and they just come in and they hang out. We talk comics, we talk movies, we talk all things nerd. And then Saturday afternoons, 4 o'clock, we do the actual comic club. But we've been able to build that community that's so wonderful. So I mean, I'd invite anybody, even if you're not going to come buy comics from me or whatever, come check it out. Come check out our club or whatever, and see what we do. I think there's probably other people that do similar things, clubs and things like that. I know a few of you belong to things, and I think that's great. We actually just recently got honored for this month of May. We were just informed that we've been chosen by the city of West Bend as the business of the month, which is just, we're a comic book store. We're a little local comic book store, and the city that we're in recognized us for what we've done and building this community and everything else, and has made us this little shop, their business of the month. And that, I think, is just like the greatest thing. Just comic book store recognized by a city. It's like, who thinks comic book stores when they think, oh, a great successful business that has an impact on their community? So, I just wanted to share with you all that, you can be inspired by your love of comics, and you can do really great things. Even if they're really small things, you can do really great things.
Awesome.
And I did bring along a selection of free comic books, so I will put these out somewhere and people can.
Okay, well, while we want to place them over on that table while we transition to our last presenter, you can set that there. And again, what's the name of the comic book store, and where can we find you online?
It is Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles. We actually found that websites these days do you no good, so we dropped that. Facebook, we do a lot with Facebook. We're on Twitter. You can follow us there. If you grab any of these free comics, you'll notice that we slapped a little sticky note in there, and that has our address, contact information, and a coupon for 10% off.
So yeah, so just do everything just in play here, huh?
That's all I got.
Well, thank you so much for coming out again. Well, actually, I think,